She was barefoot in a blizzard, standing at the edge of my porch like a ghost made of snow. Her lips were blue, her tiny hands shaking, and her eyes held a fear no child should ever know. She looked up at me and whispered words that stopped my heart cold. "Sir, my mom didn't come home last night." That single sentence sent me riding into the deadliest storm this valley had seen in 40 years. The wind came down from the mountains like something with teeth, and Jacob Mercer stood on his porch watching the snow erase the world, piece by piece. He had lived through 43 winters in this valley, but this one felt different. The cold had a weight to it, pressing against the windows of his cabin like a living thing trying to get inside. He was about to turn back into the warmth when he saw her. At first he thought it was a trick of the storm, some shadow playing against the white curtain of falling snow. But the shape moved closer, small and stumbling, and Jacob felt something cold that had nothing to do with the weather settle into his chest. He stepped off the porch, and the wind nearly knocked him sideways. Through squinted eyes, he watched the figure resolve itself into a child, no more than 6 or 7, wrapped in a thin coat that had no business being out in weather like this. "Lord Almighty," he breathed, and broke into a run. He reached her just as her legs gave out, scooping her up before she hit the ground. She weighed almost nothing, like a bundle of sticks wrapped in cloth. Her lips had turned a shade of blue that made his heart clench, and her eyes were half closed, but she was alive. He could feel her breathing against his chest, shallow and quick. Jacob carried her inside and kicked the door shut against the wind. He brought her to the fire and wrapped her in every blanket he owned, then heated water and made her drink, small sips at first until the color started coming back to her cheeks. She did not speak for nearly an hour. She just sat there, staring at the flames, her small hands wrapped around the tin cup he had given her. Jacob waited. He had learned patience from the land, from seasons that could not be rushed, from cattle that moved at their own pace. He sat in his chair and mended a piece of leather harness and waited for the child to find her words. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. "Sir, my mom didn't come home last night." Jacob set down the harness. "What's your name, little one?" "Emma." "Emma Watkins." He knew the name. The Watkins widow lived in a cabin about 4 miles east, on the edge of the territory where the forest began to climb toward the high country. She had come to the valley 2 years ago with her daughter, looking for a fresh start after her husband was killed in a mining accident up in Colorado. She kept to herself mostly, but Jacob had seen her in town a few times, a pretty woman with tired eyes and hands that knew work. "Your mama went somewhere?" he asked. Emma nodded. "She went to check the traps. She said she'd be back before dark, but she didn't come back. I waited all night. I kept the fire going like she taught me. But when morning came and she still wasn't there, I got scared. So you came looking for help." Another nod. "I remembered you. You gave me candy once, at the general store. Mama said you were a good man." Jacob felt something twist in his chest. He had given plenty of children candy over the years. He could not specifically remember this particular instance, but it did not matter. What mattered was that a woman was out there somewhere in that storm, and every minute he sat here was a minute she might not have. "Where does your mama run her traps?" "Up by the big rocks, the ones that look like fingers." He knew the place. The Devil's Hand, the locals called it. A formation of tall stone pillars that jutted up from the earth like some giant creature reaching for the sky. It was rough country up there, steep and treacherous even in good weather. In a blizzard like this, it would be deadly. Jacob stood and began pulling on his heavy coat. "Emma, I need you to stay here. Can you do that for me?" Fear flickered across her face. "You're going to find my mama? I'm going to try. What if you don't come back either?" He knelt down so that he was level with her eyes. They were green, those eyes, the color of spring grass, and they held more worry than any child's eyes should ever have to hold. "I've lived in these mountains my whole life," he said. "I know every trail, every rock, every hollow. I'm going to find your mama and bring her home. but I need you to be brave and wait for me. Can you do that?" She nodded, though he could see the tears forming at the corners of her eyes. "There's food in the larder and plenty of wood for the fire. You keep that door locked and don't open it for anyone but me or your mama. Understand?" "Yes, sir." He hesitated for a moment, then reached out and put his hand on top of her head. Her hair was the color of wheat, still damp from the snow. "Your mama's lucky to have a daughter brave enough to walk through a storm to find help. You remember that." Then he went out into the white. The cold hit him like a physical blow, stealing the breath from his lungs. The snow was coming down so thick that he could barely see 10 feet in front of him. He made his way to the barn and saddled his horse, a sturdy gray mare named Molly, who had seen him through more hard winters than he cared to count. She did not want to go out into the storm. He could not blame her, but she trusted him, and when he urged her forward, she went. The world had become a blur of white and gray. The familiar landmarks of his property disappeared behind him, swallowed by the storm. He navigated by instinct and memory, finding the trail that led east toward the Watkins cabin. It took him nearly 2 hours to reach it. The small structure sat dark and cold, the fire inside long dead. He did not stop. He pushed on, following the path that climbed toward the high country. The storm grew worse as he ascended. The wind screamed through the trees, bending them nearly double. Snow accumulated on his shoulders, on his hat, on Molly's mane. He kept his head down and pressed forward, one step at a time. He found the first trap line just below the tree line. The traps were empty, undisturbed. He moved on. The second line was the same. It was near the third line, in a small ravine sheltered from the worst of the wind, that he found her. She was huddled at the base of a large boulder, her body partially covered by snow. For one terrible moment, Jacob thought he was too late. But then he saw her chest rise, just slightly, and hope flared in his heart like a match struck in darkness. He dismounted and ran to her, brushing the snow from her face. Her skin was pale as milk, her lips nearly blue, but her eyes opened at his touch. "Emma," she whispered. "My daughter. She's safe," Jacob said. "She's at my cabin. She came to find help." A sound escaped her then, something between a sob and a laugh. "That girl, that brave, foolish girl. Can you move?" She tried to stand and cried out in pain. Her ankle, Jacob saw, was twisted at an unnatural angle. She had fallen, probably yesterday when the storm first hit, and had been unable to make it back home. "I'm going to lift you onto my horse," he said. "It's going to hurt, but I need you to hold on. Can you do that?" She nodded, and he saw in her eyes the same determination he had seen in her daughter's. These Watkins women were made of strong stuff. He lifted her as gently as he could, but the movement still drew a sharp gasp from her lips. He settled her onto Molly's back and climbed up behind her, wrapping his arms around her to keep her steady. "Hold on," he said. "We're going home." The journey back was a blur of cold and wind, and the steady rhythm of Molly's hooves breaking through the snow. The woman drifted in and out of consciousness, her body shivering violently against his chest. He talked to her the whole way, about anything and nothing, just to keep her tethered to the world. He told her about his ranch, about the cattle he raised and the horses he bred. He told her about his wife, who had died of fever 15 years ago, and the children they had never been able to have. He told her about the way the valley looked in spring, when the wildflowers bloomed across the meadows in waves of purple and yellow and red. He talked until his throat was raw, until his words became little more than croaks against the howling wind. But he did not stop. He would not let this woman slip away into the cold, not when her daughter was waiting. They reached his cabin just as the last light was fading from the sky. The storm had begun to abate, the snow falling more gently now, as if exhausted by its own fury. The door flew open before he even reached the porch. Emma stood in the doorway, her small face illuminated by the warm glow of the fire behind her. "Mama." The woman stirred at the sound of her daughter's voice. Her eyes opened and a smile crossed her cracked lips. "Emma, my brave girl." Jacob carried her inside and laid her on his bed. Emma clung to her mother's hand, tears streaming down her cheeks, while Jacob examined the injured ankle. It was broken but cleanly. He had set enough bones over the years to know what he was doing. The woman screamed when he said it, a sound that cut through the cabin like a knife. Emma buried her face against her mother's shoulder, crying harder. But when it was done, the woman lay back against the pillows and breathed. "Thank you," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "You should rest now. The storm's letting up. I'll ride into town tomorrow and fetch the doctor." She caught his hand before he could turn away. Her grip was weak, but there was strength in her eyes. "Why?" she asked. "You didn't have to come after me. In a storm like that, you could have died." Jacob looked at her for a long moment, then at the little girl curled up at her side. He thought about the years he had spent alone in this cabin, the silence that had become his constant companion. He thought about his wife, about the way she used to smile at him in the mornings, about the empty space she had left behind when she died. "Because your daughter walked 4 miles through a blizzard to find help for her mama," he said. "Because she remembered a stranger who gave her candy once and trusted that he would be a good man. That kind of faith deserves to be rewarded." He paused, looking toward the window where the last flakes of snow were drifting down against the darkening sky. "And because out here, we take care of each other. It's the only way any of us survive." The woman said nothing, but her eyes glistened in the firelight. Jacob made a bed for himself on the floor near the hearth and lay there listening to the wind die down outside. Somewhere in the night, he heard the woman's breathing deepen into sleep and the soft murmur of the child dreaming beside her. In morning, the storm had passed. The world outside was a pristine expanse of white, sparkling under a sky so blue it almost hurt to look at. Jacob rode into town and brought back the doctor, who confirmed that the ankle would heal properly with time and rest. The Watkins woman stayed at his cabin for 3 weeks while her ankle mended. In that time, something changed in the small space beneath his roof. The silence that had been his companion for so long began to recede, replaced by the sound of a child's laughter and the quiet warmth of a woman's voice. Emma followed him everywhere, asking questions about the horses and the cattle, about the land and the sky. She wanted to know everything, and he found that he did not mind teaching her. It had been a long time since anyone had looked at him with such unguarded curiosity, such simple trust. Her mother watched from the window as he taught Emma to ride, as he showed her how to read the weather in the clouds and the tracks of animals in the snow. And slowly, the tiredness in her eyes began to fade, replaced by something softer. On the day they were supposed to leave, Jacob stood on his porch and watched them pack their few belongings onto his wagon. He would drive them back to their cabin, help them get settled, and then return to his solitary life. But Emma ran up to him before he could climb onto the wagon seat, throwing her arms around his waist. "I don't want to go," she said, her voice muffled against his coat. "I want to stay here with you." He looked up and met her mother's eyes. She was standing by the wagon, her face unreadable. "Emma," she said softly, "come now. Mr. Mercer has his own life to get back to." But she did not move, and neither did Jacob. He stood there in the cold morning air, the little girl's arms wrapped around him, and thought about what his life had become. The empty rooms, the quiet meals, the years stretching out before him like an unmarked trail. "You know," he said slowly, "this cabin's too big for just one person. Always has been. And that plot of land next to yours has been sitting empty for years. A man could build on it if he had reason to." The woman's eyes widened. She opened her mouth to speak, then closed it again. "I'm not asking for anything," he said quickly. "I know we barely know each other. I know this is sudden, but life out here is short, and opportunities don't always come twice. I'm offering you a partnership. Nothing more. Shared work, shared land, a better chance for both of us. For a long moment, she did not respond. Then slowly, a smile crossed her face. You know what my daughter said to me that first night in your cabin? She said that you had kind eyes, that she knew you would save me because your eyes were kind. She walked toward him, Emma still clinging to his waist, and stopped just a foot away. I've learned to trust her judgment, she said. She hasn't been wrong yet. Spring came early that year. The snow melted, the rivers rose, and the valley burst into color. By summer, there was a new cabin rising on the land between Jacob's property and the old Watkins place. By fall, there were 2 families worth of cattle grazing in the meadows and a little girl racing through the fields with a joy that had no bounds. And in the evenings, when the sun set behind the mountains and painted the sky in shades of orange and gold, Jacob Mercer sat on his porch with his new family and thought about the storm that had nearly taken everything and instead had given him more than he ever dared to hope for. All because a brave little girl walked into the snow to save her mother and trusted a stranger to do the same.